Well, welcome everybody, and it is a lockdown disc special today because, to the best of my knowledge, it's the first double act I have on board, as you can see. I wasn't too sure whether Marcelle and Liam were going to come on separate computers in the same house, but fortunately they're not. So let's start with the lady, shall we, of the house, Marcelle Gordon, who of course you know well as a journalist news anchor. Let me start by saying hello to you, Marcelle. How are you? How is lockdown?
Hello, Neil. Everything's good. One foot in front of the other is kind of the answer that I have for that question, because that's what everybody asks. How are you doing? Are you staying safe? There's no longer those emails that say, I hope this email finds you well. It's, are you safe? What are you cooking? And that's kind of how we've gotten through our days, cooking away, making sure we have enough things to play with in the fridge, getting done with work, and not strangling the dogs. And that's been it.
Has Liam been behaving? That's what I want to know, because generally speaking, he doesn't. So how's he handled lockdown?
I hope that question isn't for me. She can answer that.
Yes.
And you know, you and Liam get on very well because you share a sense of very dry humor. I haven't thrown myself into the pool just yet. For that, I'm coping. So far, so good.
Okay, well, it's great to have you on board. And of course, Liam, we all know, he wears various hats. I'm going to call him a sports pundit, but he's, of course, senior journalist, sports journalist for Sunday Times as well. Liam, interesting times. And yeah, we're forced to stay at home, as we know, but there's some benefits to that. I suppose you've delved into the old record collection. You're going to share with Marcelle some of your discs for lockdown today.
Yeah, and the weird thing is when you look for discs, you find that you stop accumulating discs because there's no need for discs as such. But yeah, I suppose the lockdown has been interesting. I mean, you're forced to explore in different ways, and you find parts of your property that you have never discovered before.
Yes.
Places that are completely overgrown, but the dogs tend to go there, and you need to sort of extricate them from awkward spaces.
Well, I've got to tread carefully on what I'm about to say, but I know that Terry Payne has found parts of his personal property that he hasn't seen for years, just to make sure that it doesn't get COVID in various areas. So we won't go there. But let's get straight into it. I know you guys have come up with a fantastic list. Love it. Where are we going to start? Shall we start with Anita Ward? Because the moment I saw Ring My Bell, I thought, my word, that is pretty old. I think it goes back to 1979. I Googled her because I feared the worst, but she's still alive and ticking at the age of 63. Ring My Bell, it's a great song. Why, guys? Why are you taking that one?
It has to do with more or less the time we met. Marcelle was still based in Cape Town. I was up in Joburg, and we have friends. We have this group of friends that we kind of knew independently, and then they kind of caught wind that we had started seeing each other. And I was at what we used to call a supper club. It was a Tuesday night get-together, or Monday night get-together. And word got out that we started seeing each other, and this one friend started teasing me.
Were we seeing each other?
Well, in a very roundabout way, I would imagine.
It was 2007.
It was before Zoom, let's put it that way.
Well, you see, the thing is...
So they started teasing me, and... They started teasing me, and of course the one friend was every time somebody's phone rang, you turned to me and said, "You can," and now with the beat, think of the beat of the song, "Ring My Bell." You can ring Marcelle. Ring Marcelle. That's kind of how we got there.
You can ring Marcelle. Ring Marcelle.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was the longest supper ever.
Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
For those people who don't...
Which is another song, by the way. We won't go there.
Yes, exactly. So for those that don't know that song, let's play it. And you can sing along. You can ring Marcelle. In fact, you can put a number up later on.
I'll give a number at the end of the show.
It goes straight into it. So here we go. It's a great disco number, by the way.
No, it is.
I suppose we've got to stay on for the Ring My Bell bit, otherwise it's...
the chorus.
Yes. I'm sure it's coming now.
There we
Yes,
go. Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah. All together now. Marcelle. It's actually, I have to be honest, it's a great song, but it's actually much better with You Can Ring Marcelle. I think it actually works.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was quite intrigued. Preparing to speak to you has been quite an education, Neil, because I read up that the song was first written with an 11-year-old singer in mind who was going. It was supposed to be a teeny bopper song talking about talking to your friends on the phone.
Good thing that it wasn't a collaboration with Michael Jackson.
Liam. But luckily, I mean, now it's become this, and then it got voted onto some list of top 50 sexy songs of all time. So good thing the 11-year-old didn't.
I was going to say it has a sexual undertone to it, but we're going to move swiftly on to the next one. So track number 2. Now, this is another great number. And you said, Marcelle, there's a reason for this too. The wonderful voice of Michael McDonald, which is, the moment you hear it, you can hear it's him.
Yeah.
The Doobie Brothers, eh?
Absolutely. And the funny thing amongst a group of friends of ours is you kind of go around the table. If it's somebody you don't know who's joined, they're like, so what did you think? Who did you think Michael McDonald was the first time you met him? Because it's become like a party trick. Because some people who haven't seen Michael McDonald, and you think about the era that he comes from and the type of music he sang, a lot of people think Michael McDonald is a black guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, which he is certainly not, especially when you see him.
Well, especially now. I mean, geez.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's one of those songs when you hear the opening notes, it's like one of those note for note songs. You're like, oh, you know who that is. You know what tone that is. And for us, there's not really a story connected to it. It's just like we love
a shared love of Michael McDonald and the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah,
and this song was written by Michael McDonald
and Kenny Loggins.
Yeah, Kenny Loggins, Footloose.
Went on to other great things.
Yeah, and that's basically why we picked
the song in question is What a Fool Believes, and you're right, Michael McDonald, whether he's singing lead or backing vocals, he's unmistakable. It's a great song, and here it is, What a Fool Believes. That unmistakable piano sound as well, I have to say.
She musters a smile for his nostalgic tale. Never coming near what you wanted to say, only to realize it never really was. She had a place in his life.
I suppose the mark of Michael McDonald, apart from the uniqueness of his voice, was the vocal range. Vocal range.
Well, speaking of vocal range, apparently Michael Jackson at some stage claimed that he was part of the backing vocals of a certain section of that song, but he wasn't credited for it in the credits of the song.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting if Michael McDonald and Barry Gibb had a sort of a sing-off. Who can hit the highest note?
I might go for the Bee Gees as far as the falsetto is concerned.
Correct.
All I know is if any of us try, it'll be a tragedy. Never mind the Bee Gees. So 2 songs you've gone for. Let's break and do a movie each. Did you give me 3 movies? Did you? Did I
yes.
Movies. Start with your first one and remind me of the movies that you're taking into lockdown, guys. Can you remember? Or do you want me to jog your memory?
Our first pick for the movies was Pulp Fiction, and that's a personal connection because I'm sure a lot of people will say Pulp Fiction one of our favorite movies of all time. I think Liam would say it's between that and Reservoir Dogs for his favorite Quentin Tarantino.
Well, no, yeah, it's obviously a movie I like, but it's like to get to your favorite movie, it's very, very difficult. We went Pulp Fiction because there's a particular
Yeah.
a special sort of meaning for us, I suppose.
So one of the first conversations we had the night that we met on a rainy night in Cape Town.
A wine farm.
After a dinner, a rugby-related dinner is where we met officially. Ended up at a bar, as one does.
We actually never met there, you know. But anyway, go on.
Yes. Oh, okay. That's a story for another session, Neil.
Yes.
As you know, with most couples, there are different versions as to how you've met. And a part of one of the first conversations we had in a dusty late night bar on Long Street in Cape Town, he thought he'd test my knowledge and gave me a couple of movie quotes and, you know, the kind of stuff that you talk about when you're trying to suss somebody out. And I do think he was quite impressed that I very quickly nailed what quotes came from Pulp Fiction. And therefore, Pulp Fiction made our lockdown list.
Yeah.
Ezekiel 25:17.
Yeah. Knowing Liam, had you failed to answer correctly, I suspect that there would have been no advancement in the relationship because he
now, I'll tell you what quote was the clincher, and it wasn't from a movie.
A clincher.
It was if I knew who nobody is. This was a rugby related story. This is the one that clinched it. And he thought that I wouldn't know who he was referring to when we speak about somebody who's famously known as nobody. And the rugby fans who watch this, all two of them, would very quickly say, well, that's John Eales, famous Australian rugby player, is called nobody because nobody's perfect. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yes, well, thank God he never asked me that question because we wouldn't have been married, Liam. We would have, I didn't know that. I'm glad you helped me for that.
It was a Mike and the Mechanics lyric as well, isn't it?
Yes.
One of these. Nobody's perfect or something.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. Mike and the Mechanics. So what was it? Pick your second movie then, Liam. What's Pulp Fiction, the first one? You've got
what was the other one was Spotlight, because we're both journalists, so a movie like that we were always going to sort of gravitate towards. So it's I think it won the Academy Award a couple of years ago.
Boston.
It was based on a Pulitzer, for the Boston Globe's Pulitzer Prize winning reportage of the child sex scandal, that involved the Catholic Church. And it was a wonderful movie with a wonderful cast, including Michael Keaton, Mark Ruffalo, Rachel McAdams, I think.
Yeah.
And it was just, you can think of movies way back when, that features our industry, and to watch it, on a small screen, or even the big screen, is often a little weird because that is not necessarily your view of a newsroom and how things sort of unfold, because everything is condensed into like 90 minutes. But it certainly was a gripping movie. You kind of know how things will sort of pan out and play itself out, but still, it was wonderful to sit through.
And I think for us, the joy of that movie was that this was a great piece of reporting that this movie tells the story of. But it was still in a time where a unit inside a newspaper building was given time to go and do proper investigative work on a piece, doing all their checks and balances, doing everything on foot, proper journalism before they pulled the trigger, and then finally went to print with it. And it quite literally had an impact on people's lives. And sadly, we're living in a time where just over the last few weeks, we've seen the print industry taking hit after hit after hit. And it's been quite sad to watch.
I stand to be corrected, but I think the Boston Globe still has the longest continuous investigative unit in the United States, of all the newspapers. So that in itself is a wonderful achievement.
Well, maybe we can trust them, because I was going to say news these days. I mean, I don't know about you, but by and large, if I read a news story, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was probably 8 days ago or something that the fake news story came out that the North Korean president had died. But the moment it came out, I just said to everyone, that's fake news. And they said, oh, it can't be. Yeah. I said, I'm telling you now, it's fake news. So your default position now is generally fake news until you can confirm. Yeah. And even then, you've got to be careful.
And I think that probably had its roots in the former leader of North Korea as well, because the stories that came out back then, Kim Jong-il, he was obviously in hospital for a long time. And so if you look at his name, the story stood, it was always true.
Yeah, yeah.
He was always ill.
Thank you, Liam. He's on
Liam.
all week, by the way,
Wow.
Marcel. I should have shoved him on with
Oh.
Alex Committee.
Help me, help.
It'd be brilliant if you just put up a sign, help, get me out of here. Okay, back to the music. Now, I'm glad, and obviously, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were clearly thinking of me on this one because the lyric is tall and tan and young and lovely, and obviously had me in mind. This is the great Astrud Gilberto. You won't believe it. I've got all my LPs in the garage these days, but I've got that LP. And it goes back, yonks, I think to the 1960s, to be honest. But is there a story behind? Well, actually, let's listen to it, shall we? First of all, I can play it because it's great. People probably remember it as that. I think it was used in a coffee ad here in the 80s.
Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes each one, she passes close.
That was the coffee
That's
pot.
where the coffee bit comes in.
She's like a samba that swings so cool and sways so gently, that when she passes each one, she passes close.
It's actually a
It could also
beautiful.
be a Cremora ad, actually, if you think about it.
Yes, good. It's still stood the test of time, a very unique sound, almost jazzy in its own way. But why are you guys taking Astrud Gilberto starring with Stan Getz? I assume he's on whatever that is, a clarinet or something.
Yeah, we were very lucky to be able to go to Brazil for the Football World Cup in 2014. Quite possibly, and it wasn't a work trip. As you know, Liam travels a lot for work. Got such a tough job. Not going to happen for a while now, though. But we went to go on holiday, and we went to the 2014 Football World Cup. And what an amazing experience Brazil was. But this song specifically, I mean, we were in a group of friends, and the type of friends that as we got onto the plane at Johannesburg, somebody pulled out their phone and started playing on the Copacabana. So that set the tone. We did a tour, a quick fire tour of some of the big sites in Rio the one day, because obviously on those trips you don't have much time and the place is overrun with tourists. And we found a great tour guide that put us on the back of a truck, and we just could hit all the big sites in one day. And one of them was to go to the famous botanical gardens in Rio. And one of the sites that they've set up there, they've got a little board. And on this board, under this very big and old tree in the beautiful, it's a beautiful botanical garden. It's been there forever. The story or the legend goes that one of the people that used to visit the botanical garden all the time, and if you believe the plaque, this person used to sit under this tree with his guitar and compose music. And this particular one was the guy who wrote the melody of The Girl from Ipanema. And of course, I whipped out my phone.
It's Joban.
Yeah, how do you pronounce his name? And I, of course, ripped up my phone because I'm not going to let a romantic comedy movie scene moment pass by. And I grabbed Liam and I said, come. And so as we played Girl from Ipanema, and we all had a bit of a dance under the tree. And that's why whenever we think, Girl from Ipanema, it takes us back to that moment. Antonio Carlos Jobim.
Jobim, yeah. But I think he's known as Tom, which not a lot of people know this. That part of his name, Tom, was also used as the mascot for the 2016 Paralympics in Rio.
Is
That Tom bit. Fact or fiction?
I don't know with him. With you, I don't know.
He's got his
anyway. So yeah, but one of my favorite things of that World Cup experience also, I took myself to a bossa nova concert one of the nights we were there. All the girls went. The guys decided to go and work their way through the Brazilian beers.
Had 17 different Brazilian beers on that trip.
Ish.
Not that night, but on
the girls went and found themselves a very authentic bossa nova concert night, and it was just...
I think you've frozen there for a moment, but you should be back in a second. We were talking about the bossa nova. Hopefully we'll get Liam and them back on in a moment. But while we do, I'm going to fill time because as soon as they're back on, they're back on. And we're going to move on. Don't worry, I've been filling while you are chatting away there. So we've done 4 songs, and let me just see where these guys are. There, you're back now.
Okay.
But
Yes, yes.
I've been filling. I was singing Barry Manilow, Copacabana while you were gone.
Oh,
So let's go to, if we can, the third movie, because we've done the two movies, right? They are actually pausing a little bit here, aren't they? So, yeah, I think what I'll do is stop recording and then...
okay.
Right, we're back on. Sorry about that. The third movie I promised you. Is this the Blackadder package you're taking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which,
Look, it's the kind of humor that
Yeah.
I just love and adore. I mean, I suppose I prefer British humor over American humor. And in the Blackadder series, I think it was the fourth one, Blackadder goes forth, which was just
in the trenches.
So yeah. I mean, it's when a lot of it is dark comedy in the other series, but when it comes to Blackadder goes forth, they take it a notch or two down, if you know what I mean, into the trenches. So yeah, it's just devilishly funny.
Yeah.
And I think also, if I mean, the basis of this conversation is what you would take into lockdown. It's probably our most prized box set. Liam will turn up his nose. My other prized box set is the entire complete box set of Will and Grace, but that's a different era. But Blackadder is something that we have a shared joy of, and we kind of judge our friends by who likes Blackadder and who doesn't. I mean, who the hell doesn't like Blackadder? Unless you just don't get the humor. I mean, it's just complete and utter genius as far as I'm concerned.
Stephen Fry's character, General Melchett, is just it's on another level. I mean, he doesn't even have to open his mouth. When you just see him, he looks ridiculous.
The pigeon murder of Flanders, or whatever it is.
Speckled picture.
And of course, I mean, you talk about Stephen Fry, who's just huge. You know, he's become astronomical in terms of acting, movies, in terms of his body of work is incredible. But Hugh Laurie himself, who of course played George, is also gone on to, one could argue, I wouldn't say bigger and better things, but certainly bigger things for sure. So yeah, you're going to be at home with that. No, that'll keep you occupied for even as long as we're going to be in lockdown. What about the book, guys? Before we go back to the movies, what book have you decided to take? You've got one each, I assume.
We have different books, I think.
Yeah, we've got different books. I went with one because I was like, what do you pick and for what reason? And I thought I'd go with probably my most recent favorite book. A friend who's a doctor suggested it to me because she goes through books like nobody's business, along with saving people's lives. I mean, she's so excellent. She makes me sick. And it's a book that she suggested I would enjoy called A Man Called Ove, by a Swedish writer called Fredrik Backman. And from what I've read about him, he was quite a popular columnist over there, writer, blogger, and finally started writing books. And The Man Called Ove then got translated into English, and it became a bestseller. I think it was on the New York Times bestseller list for 42 weeks or something like that. And when I first read the blurb, I was like, what is she thinking I'd enjoy this? Because basically it tells the story without giving too much away, because that's part of the joy is reading it and discovering what it's actually about. Because it's a bit...
I think, by the way, his name was Over. I hope the lockdown discs isn't over. Otherwise, we might have to try again. Let me pause and see if we can come back. So they're back, and Marcelle was saying, and I didn't hear it, neither did you. She said she was bawling her eyes out every single chapter, which is, I think, why Liam just went like that and paused.
Yeah, just about.
Back on. Liam, what are you taking? I know you crying when you read it.
I cry with laughter, and that's why I went for the book I went with. I went with a Bill Bryson offering titled 1927. And basically, he reflects on the summer of 1927, which also happened to be the middle of the Prohibition period in the States. So he writes about, obviously, the whole Bill Bryson style. It's not just giving a historical account of what happened, but he's obviously very funny in the way he delivers that. Gives you information that you just clearly would have escaped you. And he writes about the Prohibition. He writes about Charles Lindbergh. He writes about the American president at the time. There are just so many layers to that one summer. I mean, it's also the year in which Babe Ruth broke the record where he got 60 plus home runs. But he takes so many detours with these sort of fairly popular topics. There are so many detours that he takes, along the way, that it's quite an engrossing read. And the number of times you just sit up and cry with laughter was just staggering.
So it's just a coincidence it happened to be Terry Payne's birth year. Nothing more than a coincidence.
No.
No. Okay, so we've got those sorted out. We need to go back to the music. I'm just trying to keep an eye on the time because you actually ended up taking 6 songs. So we're going to go back. Now we're going to go back to a 1978 track. And I suspect there might be a story behind this as well. But I have to tell you, this is Earth, Wind and Fire, which has been very popular. You are the 3rd set of locked down discs people who have taken some form of Earth, Wind and Fire with them. But interestingly enough, the first one that have taken this song, which is September. So I'm going to play it. It's a great song. We all know. It'll have you dancing in lockdown for sure. Here we go. We all know this. 1978, disco at its best. So I'm going to have to try and remember. The problem is, guys, that these days, I mean, I'm doing so many of these. I think this is number 14 or 15. I can't remember who chose what. I know that Earth, Wind and Fire was chosen twice. It might have been a Pommy song, Pommy and Mbangwa, and it might have been Andy Capistano. Did Andy choose Earth, Wind and Fire? No, probably not.
I don't think he did. I remember him going with Steely Dan, or not, well...
Steely Dan, Neil.
Nice, man. Yeah, but he missed...
Which I thought was a wonderful choice.
Yes. So why?
I recently also discovered there was one of the rugby coaches happens to be a big Earth, Wind and Fire aficionado. I'd actually call him Dion Davids, who's now part of the Springbok coaching staff. There was a quote attributed to him where somebody asked him about favorite bands of music, and he said Earth, Wind and Fire and Kool and the Gang, because if you don't like those two, what were you doing in the 80s?
Well, whoever it was who chose Earth, Wind and Fire had 2 Kool and the Gang songs. I think they had 2 Earth, Wind and Fire, 2 Kool and Gang. So that answers your question. You're spot on. It's a
Are you sure it wasn't Julia? Because Earth, Wind and Fire is probably being given the freedom of Cape Town.
Yeah.
Look, for me, I put that on the list because there is not a colored 21st birthday or wedding party or bride that you will go to, and at some point somebody's not going to put September on it. So that is my... And that intro is such that you have to get to the dance floor by the time the trumpets or the brass section fits in. So what's quite interesting about that is also preparing to speak to you, because you've had all these real knowledgeable musical historians on your show. It's a bit intimidating. Apparently that date doesn't have any significance. They went through every date in September until they got to 21st, and that worked with the song. And the writer was saying he wanted them to come up with a lyric for the chorus, because the chorus goes, body up, and it doesn't mean anything. And White, I think, the lead singer, fought with them, and they said, this is staying the way it is because you're not going to get a good lyric get in the way of a good groove. So now you know.
September also is a very late entry onto this list because we did discuss. We had 7 songs and we had to whittle down to 6.
He's lying. We had 14 songs, Neil.
But the big shootout in the end was either September, and I know a lot of people in Cape Town will probably crucify me for this, and the other great song that you love and adore, Jonah Louie's "You'll Always Find Me in the Kitchen."
At parties, yes. And of course, he had the other one with the cavalry as well, didn't he, Jonah Louie? But I often thought that, the guy he's a friend of mine, I always thought that Brandon October should have redone September, because it would have been really interesting. It would have been the same part of the year and it would have gone down perfectly. But anyway, there we go. Okay, let's move on, because now we're going to slow it down. And here's a man who, sadly, we lost recently, the great Bill Withers. And this is a wonderful song, just the two of us. Just from the title, it has significance for you, does it?
Well, it's a very simple significance. It's kind of how it describes lockdown for so many people. I mean, I will admit, with people who are in lockdown with other warm bodies, some good days are good, but some days are not that good. But it's nice to have another person with a heartbeat in the house, because I do think after the second extension of lockdown, you start talking to the walls if there's nobody else around. But Liam's got his own version of the song.
I remember who it was. Yes. No, I was going to say, because now I was thinking about people who are in lockdown, and then I remembered Gavin Hunt, who I spoke to, and he was the one who liked Earth, Wind and Fire and Kool and the Gang. So there you go. So I knew.
Look, I've seen Gavin Hunt a few times in Catsies on those Thursday nights where they have the sort of the Joel night. So I'm not surprised, actually.
He can dance.
Yeah, it's very much our lockdown song, because we often post pictures of when we're busy cooking, and then the product of which ends up on Instagram or sometimes even Twitter. And it's our sort of inspiration, especially when we make a fire. It's just the two of us. You can make it if you braai.
This was the big payoff line for that pick, Neil.
Yes, I like it. I must actually send you
on it for a while.
I'm going to send you a comedian who did these misheard lyrics. I had a friend back in the day who, when the going gets tough, his mother stormed into the room and said, "Get that filth off the radio," because she thought he was singing "Go and Get Stuffed." But it was, of course, Go and Get Tough. When the going gets tough. I want to play Bill Withers. I have to. Here we go. Great song. Sadly lost to us recently.
I see the crystal raindrops fall, and the beauty of it all is when the sun comes shining through to make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, and I want to spend time with you.
And that's I just want to point out to people that this is Brighton, but it isn't a case of just the two of us. They've got quite a lot of us in the family.
Hi, Brighton.
Sometimes we wish it was just the two of us, eh? We've got a song to do, so you run along there. He's going to go and say cheerio. The last song, and we probably run out of time to play it, but you've taken John Lennon. Is there any significance to taking Nobody Told Me?
Not huge significance, apart from during Rugby World Cup last year. I attended Rugby World Cup, and Marcelle came along for the last 10 days. After supper, we would sort of make our way back to the hotel, and you'll stop at the odd bar on the way back. And there was this one place we walked into.
In Tokyo?
It was literally just this door. There's no name. It's just this door that you knock on, and then if they want to, they open. And a little dark alley that gets to like the bar counter where only 7 people can sit. And on 2 occasions we went into this bar and we were the only patrons there. And for some reason on both occasions they played the song, and you just felt they just made you feel so special, because they're quite discerning about who they let in as well. They're not, in that particular bar, in some bars, they're not very welcoming of Westerners because, we have tendencies. So they were so welcoming of us that it just every time we walked in there, it was so memorable. And on both occasions, they happened to play the song. And I'm a big Lennon fan as well. So.
No. It does have significance. That's for sure. If there's only allowing 7 people in the bar, they probably preempted COVID. They'll be over the moon, actually. They're probably only lying in 3 now with social distancing. Which brings us on to the closing thing. Guys, it's been lots of fun. I think we've gone through all of the tracks. I loved your selections, as I told you I would. But maybe just to close out, I mean, who knows where we're going in terms of this extended lockdown as we move from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 and 1. But maybe just a final reminder to South Africans from you guys to stay strong, hey, Marcelle. I mean, some people are finding it tough. All of us are very privileged compared to some other people, but folks must just hang in there, hey?
Yeah, you disappeared there for a second. Glad to have you back, Neil. But yeah, thanks. It's we've been hanging in there and keeping ourselves entertained. Being invited onto your show took up a couple of hours, so thanks for that.
I should have made it a 4-hour show. It would have kept you busy for at least a week. Liam, thanks very much to you guys as well, hey? And hopefully, I mean, you must be missing the sport as much as everybody else in the world, I guess, particularly being a Liverpool fan.
Yes, we want to have a decision as soon as possible, obviously, when it comes to that. But yeah, as a sports writer, it does feel weird not to go to a venue and, you know, write a match report. The only thing we see on television are obviously reruns. It just puts you in a very different space and think about things in a different way. We've had to sort of get innovative, and, you know, when we write slightly differently. We probably also the last while have had to sort of write pieces where you reflect on certain matches or tournaments that you've covered, which has been fun as well. But I mean, you can only do that for so long.
Well, guys, thanks. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for sharing your music. I loved it, and the books and the movies and everything. We're going to love you and leave you, and wish you all the best, and see you back in the bar where they can allow us in more than 7 people at a time. But Marcelle, thanks very much. Take care, everybody, and stay strong, stay safe.
Thank you.